Welcome, welcome. We'll give folks a few more minutes to drift in. My name is Jean Fang, and I'm the Lentz Neighborhood Association Vice Chair. I'm going to be leading our session today. A couple housekeeping items while people are still trickling in. This meeting is going to be recorded. We use the recordings in support of our meeting minutes, and they are posted to our YouTube page. The agenda for today is linked in the chat, so feel free to pop that open. To be perfectly frank, I am having some technical difficulties this evening, so I would normally share my screen, but instead I'm going to attempt to drop some links in the chat so folks can see things. If you notice on our agenda, we do have all the PDFs from OTAC, which is our main guest today, linked on our website in that agenda, so you can go ahead and pop that open if need be. We'll do this. Morgan, I might need a little bit of help with hands. I don't know what that looks like logging in from the browser. So we will play it by ear and go from there.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll give it 2 more minutes and then we'll kick this off quickly at 7:10. Thank y'all for being here. Beautiful. I think most folks have names as their participant items. If you do not and you would like to, that would be excellent, just so that everyone knows who they're talking to. Alrighty, it is 7:10. Welcome to the Lentz Neighborhood Association July General Meeting. We are really pleased you're here. If you go to the link in the chat, you can follow along with the agenda. We typically start off with an introduction and a welcome, so thank you all for being here. And then we're going to kick it off. I'm going to read a brief land acknowledgement. We'll talk through the code of conduct. We have a little bit of business to approve the May 2021 general meeting minutes. That's usually pretty quickly. We'll talk about voting at that point. And then we will jump into the Lentz land use discussions. And we have Nathan Jones with us from OTAC. So a brief land acknowledgement. The Lentz neighborhood area rests on traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Casamit, Clackamas, bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. Indigenous people have created communities and summer encampments to harvest and enjoy the plentiful natural resources of the area for the last 11,000 years. We want to recognize that Portland today is a community of many diverse Native peoples who continue to work and live here. We respectfully acknowledge and honor all Indigenous communities, past, present, future, and are grateful for their ongoing and vibrant presence. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many Indigenous and Native American families today. As settlers and guests on these lands, we respect the work of Indigenous leaders and families and pledge to make ongoing efforts to recognize their knowledge, creativity, and resilience. And today's land acknowledgement is borrowed from the Portland Parks Foundation, and I will go ahead and place that link there if you'd like to do some more reading. Code of conduct wise, the Lentz Neighborhood Association generally wants to make sure that these meetings are pleasant, equitable, and all voices can be heard. So please avoid speaking out of turn or interrupting folks. Please do not personalize negative feedback. Please do not talk down to others or place blame or be disrespectful. What we do encourage is assuming good intentions, respecting the agenda, facilitators, and process. If you have already spoken tonight, consider making space for others to be and feel heard. Please respect different viewpoints, boundaries, offer constructive criticism, or propose solutions. Welcome new members and guests, and get involved. A reminder that breaking any of these agreements is grounds for removal from the meeting at the discretion of the facilitator. Hate speech of any kind will not be tolerated because we're aiming for this to be a safer space for everyone, and we invite you, if it feels violated, to help maintain it. So with that being done, Morgan, would you mind or be able to present the May 2021 general meeting minutes for our vote of approval?
Certainly.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. So for folks who haven't been with us, you are qualified to be a member of the Lentz Neighborhood Association if you live within the boundaries of Lentz. Whether you are a renter, homeowner, if you reside here, you are good to go. You have signed into this meeting today. You may also be a member if you own a business or run a nonprofit in Lentz. So that is voting. So what we'll do is Morgan will share the meeting minutes. We can then make a motion to approve them. If that motion is seconded, we can open the floor for discussion if there is any, and then we will call to vote following that discussion.
1 second, I'm sharing my screen. I just want to make sure I'm showing the right thing. Okay.
Beautiful.
So these are the May general meeting minutes. There are links to the actual presentations throughout. The recording has been posted on YouTube since I think the day after or something since the meeting. So it's been up there for quite some time, and you can watch in its entirety here, or there are timestamps throughout.
Awesome. In that case, I am going to motion to approve the May 2021 LNA general meeting minutes. The way we typically, who is that?
That was me, sorry.
Oh, awesome. Is there any discussion required? Does anyone have any questions or comments? All right, in that case, I will call to vote. You may vote yes, no, or abstain if you are a member of the Lentz Neighborhood Association. Please go ahead and type that in the chat. Let's see. Ideally, we would have more than 2 votes. We can also circle back at the August meeting if needed. Joanne, I'd like to invite you to vote. Phone caller, you have just joined us. If you are a member of the Lentz Neighborhood Association, we are currently voting on the May 2021 meeting minutes to approve them. They're available on our website if you so choose. All right. We're going to go ahead and call that 2 yeses. I will need to revisit the bylaws, and I think we should bring these back on the next general meeting so we can make sure we have more representation. So I'm going to motion, well, we guess we don't have a vote. So I'm going to recommend to the board that we bring these back at the May general meeting. To bring back to, or sorry, August. Beautiful. Okay, fantastic. So we are now at the point where we can transition into the meat and bones of this. So Nathan Jones is here from OTAC, specifically to discuss the development at the properties at Southeast 92nd and Southeast Ramona Street. So Nathan, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you if you want to give us a little high-level description of what's going on right there in Lentz Town Center, and then we can open the floor to questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Jean. Just want to say I really appreciate you guys letting us be a part of this meeting and share what we're doing, and we're happy to take questions and get feedback. So let me share my screen real quick. Oh, it's disabled.
Oh, sorry. Here, I'll let you.
Okay, cool.
1 second. Sorry, as you can tell, we're having some technical issues.
No worries.
Yeah. There we go. All right.
All right.
We'll stop presenting so you can have it. There you go.
All right, is that working?
You should be able to do it now. Yeah, I don't see it yet, but select your screen that you want to share. There you go.
Cool. All right. So my name is Nathan Jones. I am a urban planner with OTAC. We have the rest of the team here as well. So we have Ron Dean and Nate Irwin, architects at OTAC, and then we also have our client and the property owner, Westing Glass, and he's going to be here to also field questions as we go. So as noted before, we are working on a mixed-use development at Southeast 92nd and Southeast Ramona. So you can see the project site here is comprised of 3 different tax lots. We're preserving this one right here, if you can see my mouse. And then this property is scheduled for demolition. The architects can go into a little bit further about the details, but we have 47 units. And as I said, it's mixed use, so we'll have some ground floor, other uses. And with that, we have associated bike parking, outdoor space, and we do not have a parking requirement because of our proximity to a metro station. So with that said, we are here because of the neighborhood contact requirement. So we're under neighborhood contact 3 because we have new construction that is greater than 10,000 square feet. And we're within a design overlay zone. So this property is zoned commercial mixed use 3. We're in the City of Portland design overlay, and we're also in the Center Main Street overlay. So that prompted the neighborhood contact requirement, and we're happy to share this project and get feedback from y'all. So as I said before, 47 units, 7 studios, 39 1-bedrooms, 1 2-bedroom, and then all those other associated things I talked about. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Ron. He's the lead architect on this one, and we can start going through the design process for you guys.
Thanks, Nate. And I'm assuming I can just tell you to hit the next button and we can go to the next slide.
Yep, sounds good.
Perfect. All right. And again, as Nate said, Jean, I wanted to thank you and the Lentz Neighborhood Association for allowing us to come share and show you what we've got going on. So with that said, let's jump into what we're going to show you right now, our current design. Nate, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is the ground floor plan. The section that is in red that's marked retail, that will be some sort of commercial function, is that building 5802, which is the building to remain. Our main lobby is off of Ramona. So we've got 4 or 5, I can't even remember. So 6 units on the ground floor, along with both an indoor and outdoor amenity space. The lobby and the support spaces, the trash room, and some mechanical spaces also reside on this floor. We also have a basement where we've got an additional community room or a amenity space along with our bike parking.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the front porch and underneath that front porch is also where we happen to have some of our short-term bike parking as well. Nate, next slide. So this is our typical floor plan. Again, the units on the second and third floor of 5802, again in the upper right or upper left, sorry. And then our standard floor plate with 1 bedrooms and studios. And these occur on floors 2 through 5. The building is split. It does sort of step. So the existing building is a 3-story. Part of this building is 4-story, and then part of the building is 5-story. Again, to kind of create that varied mass to help sort of create that really nice urban fabric again, rather than just going full height everywhere. We also have a couple of perspectives. Nate, if you want to next slide. So again, this is looking southeast from Southeast 92nd, Southeast Ramona. The existing building is there in the foreground. The black over white and gray over black portions are that sections of the building that wrap around, our entry being down Ramona where it says 5812. Next slide. Again, this is just a little bit closer, looking back toward the Max station, down toward the end of Ramona. And then I think we've got one more that just shows, again, a close up from the intersection, seeing the new portion of the building there to the south.
Awesome. I think that's the gist of it from a high level. Do we want to go ahead and start questions now?
Let's go ahead and do that. You can go ahead and use the raise hand feature. Unfortunately, again, since I'm on the browser, I'm not entirely sure if I'll be, oh, okay, it looks like one hand is raised. Thank you for whoever tested that out. Joanne, go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Comments mainly. While ruefully acknowledging that Portland developers can do as they please, it's still a better business practice to be a good, respectful neighbor. I'm a member of Lentz Strong Housing Team, making Lentz a home for all our neighbors. I'm going to summarize community neighbor concerns we've been fielding the last month. Until such time as the city enacts a vacancy tax, do we need speculative development and more potentially empty buildings to contribute to blight? There will be displacement of neighbors when the foreclosure and eviction moratoria end. These neighbors will not be seeking market rate housing. The small number of inclusionary housing units at 60% median family income does not justify the developer tax break. Lack of parking negatively impacts disabled community neighbors, young families, and working poor people working shifts. Lentz lacks basic amenities and services, including a grocery. It is currently impractical to be carless in Lentz. Lack of parking creates congestion. It will also potentially impact efficient ingress and egress to emergency vehicles and further create traffic bottlenecks. Lentz was particularly negatively impacted during the heat dome. A PSU professor in a recent Willamette Week article cited lack of tree canopy and clusters of dark, tall buildings as part of the problem. This is environmental racism. Trees need to be planted, roofs need to be painted white, buildings need to be shorter and less dark in color. Questions have also arisen about the timeline for the taxpayer-funded 92H groundbreaking and the development of the F block by Portland Housing Bureau. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. I took a couple notes on some of the highlights. I guess, OTAC team, if you want to, I guess, address, and then I can Joanne, if you're okay with it, kind of follow up, because there were at least 4 to 5 different topics in that question.
Yeah, so thank you for your comments. Obviously, we want to work with the neighborhood on this, as any project that we do. I can't speak to every single topic you brought up. I'm not sure if anybody else on my team wanted to specifically address any of her comments.
Yeah, I mean, except for the fact that we are providing a small portion of a green roof, which hopefully will at least help with some of that heat island effect.
Yeah, and unfortunately with the parking, it just wasn't a requirement because of how close we are, and it's such a small site to begin with. We didn't exactly have space for it. So it would be incredibly hard to park it just with the size of it right now. And just getting the units in there, it took priority. And so hopefully we're providing enough bike parking. We're meeting the standard. And with the proximity to the Max line, we're hoping that between the bike riders and the Max riders, that it's not going to increase congestion a whole lot. We understand that it's bound to happen, but we're doing the best we can to work within the city's standards, design standards, and requirements to meet what they've deemed necessary. Would ownership like to respond? Weston, are you there?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, so what exactly would be what's the first question you'd like me to address?
Joanne, if you want to just provide a quick summary, or so far, I think they've addressed the parking concern and a little bit of the question about heat dome and building factors that would help reduce that issue with the roof garden.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
I'm having a little bit of connectivity issue here, so I can't really see the screen.
Right now, we're looking at the bird's eye view of the project site and the like CAD map drawing page. All right, let's give Weston a minute to, I guess, try to reconnect.
Oh,
Rob,
I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
I just wanted to add, they mentioned the green roof. We are also, the rest of the roof that's not the green roof will be white colored to reflect heat as much as possible. And we're building the building solar ready. We don't have the budget quite yet for a solar array, but that is in the plan for the future.
Awesome, thank you. Rob Pett.
I think Jean.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, do you wanted me to summarize? I had another question though that wasn't answered.
Yeah, I was gonna say go for it, and then Rob Pett, we will have you up next.
Okay. Everybody can hear me, right? Okay. My
Yeah.
other question was, and this is maybe Mr. Guillen can answer that from Prosper as well too, and it goes back again to speculative development. And right now in the town center, there's a lot of vacant storefront space at Lens Commons that I think is now being taken care of actually, but it was vacant for about 2 years. And when the community residents attended Prosper Community Conversations in 2019, we thought that 92H was going to break ground in spring 2020. 92H is also a palindrome property. And I realized, yeah, COVID put a kibosh on all that. Our concern is, though, is that it seemed as if 92H was also going to be followed by which was a big win for the community, affordable housing through Portland Housing Bureau as a block F. And our concern is it seems as if no one at Prosper or thus far at Palindrome can answer our question as to when 92H is breaking ground. And it seems as if right now, but I have to check with Portland Housing Bureau, that the affordable housing of block F is contingent upon 92H breaking ground. So I guess our concern is, since it's the same developer, is that essentially the 58112, 5814 development is going to have the same imprint and impact as 92H. It's going to be market rate housing with the minimum number of inclusionary units. So we were just wondering, is an idle question, but actually an important question, why isn't 92H breaking ground, and why is 5812, 5814 being prioritized? Because it seems as if our affordable housing in block F, which is what the community desperately needs, is going to be contingent upon 92H being created.
I can speak to that. So I'm pretty new at Palindrome, and I'm not familiar with the block F that you're referring to. Is that the corner, the northwest corner of Herald and 92nd?
It's essentially near the Waddles Boys and Girls Club parking lot, essentially.
Okay.
So I guess that would be it. Yeah, they added that out of community concern.
I don't really know anything about that, but I can tell you what I know about 92H, which is that we are pressing forward with that one at the same time as the current one we're talking about here. And they're both actually scheduled to break ground pretty close to each other. With this one, we're hoping to break ground in early 2022. 92H, we're hoping summer 2022. That one's a much bigger project, so it just takes longer every step of the way, the design, the permitting, getting the financing, et cetera. So we're pushing forward on both of them simultaneously. And I'm sorry I can't answer your question about block F, but I will look into it.
Okay, I guess our concern remains too, is we've not been getting LNA notification, and I realize that there's been relaxed rules due to residential infill and changes in zoning and everything, but we never received a demolition delay request notice from our neighborhood association, either because the mail was sitting at the East Portland Community Office inbox, or it wasn't being relayed through email. So that's sort of a concern, because I'm hearing now that 92H is going to be breaking ground contemporaneously, maybe with this other development, and that's the first time we've heard about it. Shouldn't there have been some type of announcement through our neighborhood association before then?
Awesome. Thank you for the comment, Joanne. Oh, go ahead. I think I know
that's still a very very tentative date for 92H, and we haven't reached the point. We're not even close to submitting for permit for that yet. We don't even have it designed fully yet. So any neighborhood contact requirements for that have yet to be triggered. So that would explain why you haven't heard anything about it. And it may be even longer. You know, these things always shift and slide. There's a lot of factors, a lot of moving parts. So, but rest assured, we will make sure that the neighborhood association is aware whenever there's something to share.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Weston. Rob Pett, you have your hand raised.
Hi, this is Robert. So along those similar lines, this is the first public hearing about this project, correct? And yet it seems like there's a demolition permit for August 2nd or 3rd or something like that, and that's 5 days from now. And they've already started deconstruction on the building scheduled for demolition, and this is the first we've heard about it. The first notice that anyone got was the signs going up in the window being like, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing all this stuff in a month from now. And it's, along with what Joanne was saying, it's like just kind of concerning. It seems like this is sort of a rubber stamp process going on here, that like it's maybe already been decided that this is going to happen. And it's just kind of like this is being shoehorned in at the end to be like, okay, we let the community know. And I think if the community had known for maybe 3 months or whatever, that supposedly usually a historic property gets noticed, that maybe there would have been things brought up, like the lack of parking, like the destruction of a usable adaptive reuse building that could have possibly been part of the proposal, but there was no input. I mean, and like I said, it's already happening essentially. The people are already ripping stuff out of the building. So it's not even like it could be even stopped at this point, essentially. Like the building's essentially already being torn down. So there's just kind of a concern among some people in the neighborhood, and we've been talking about it, that like this seems like it's kind of being rolled over us. So more of a comment.
Well, like I
Not
said,
necessarily for the not necessarily for the developers. More maybe this is more on the neighborhood association or the city process as to why this is kind of occurring.
Yeah. So this is Weston. Like I said, I'm pretty new at Palindrome, so I've only been here for the very end of this permit process for the demolition of that building, but I can tell you that it took us 8 months to get that permit. It was originally applied for back in October, and the city has a very detailed and thorough process that you have to go through to get a demolition permit. And it does include 3 different types of notification to the neighborhood, and all of those were accomplished. Back in October when we applied, there were signs that went up. The city themselves, the Bureau of Development Services, sends out letters to people in the neighborhood. And then we also have a requirement to hang door hangers on people's doors, which we did. So it's a very long process. And, you know, I guess we just have to blame COVID or something for the fact that maybe that word didn't get out as widely as people would hope. And, you know, I regret that, but it is a very thorough process that we have to go through to get this permit, and that did happen. So the current meeting we're having really applies to the new project, and the permit for demolition is a completely separate track. So the neighborhood, I know it may appear that we're just right now saying, hey, we're going to tear the building down, but you know, actually that announcement has been happening since October of last year.
Awesome. Thank you, Weston. I have a question myself, and then I see Joanne, your hand is still up, and then Jennifer just put her hand up. Regarding the OTAC development, and I think all the developments that look like they're in progress for Lentz Town Center. Again, going back to the heat dome of a couple weeks ago, do you have plans in place to basically be able to provide the future residents of these facilities cooling, whether it's in the apartments themselves or public spaces? Could you talk a little bit about adapting to address basically climate change in these developments?
All of the apartments and the community rooms in this building will have air conditioning, and we're doing our best to make it as energy efficient of a building as we can within budgetary limits. And as we talked about before, there's a green roof. The remaining portion of the roof that doesn't have the green roof is white in color to reflect heat. And, you know, we're going to insulate the heck out of that building. So that's really the best that we can do. I mean, density is a good thing. When you build apartments together, it's more energy efficient to cool that building than it is to cool a whole bunch of single family homes. So a building like this does have that going for it as well.
Thank you. Joanne, did you have another question or comment?
This came up also during community conversations with Prosper. How much are the rents going to be there? I don't know if anybody knows. And how big are the units? Because I know when we had community conversations with Prosper, what came up was a big shortage of family units. We have a lot of families in Portland, and what we noticed is units tend to get smaller and smaller, and a 2-bedroom probably would be the minimum for a family if you have children and you don't want to all be sharing the same bed in 1 bedroom or something. Thank you.
Well, I don't know what the rents are going to be yet. We just have to kind of figure that out as we get close to the date of opening. I can tell you that, Portland Housing Bureau sets the maximum rents you can charge for the affordable units. And I don't think that the market rate units will be a whole lot more than that, but I can't make any promises. There is 1 or 2 2-bedrooms in this building, and then we have a lot of 1 bedrooms, and there are 3 large loft units that could be family sized as well.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
Hi, I just want to piggyback on what people have been saying. So when it comes to the outreach with the neighborhood, it's the neighbors that are within the proximity of where the development is happening. And the situation is that some of those neighbors don't know where to have a voice or where to go. So reaching out to those neighbors is a part of what the land use chair does. And so when that happens, the land use chair goes out, talks to those neighbors and sees if they have any comments or not. And what has happened is that they usually don't have a problem if it doesn't affect them. And so it doesn't go out to the wider Lents community, what's going on, until like one of the gentlemen said, like there's a notice put on a window or a door. So I think that's part of the issue, is that all the community members are not getting notice of what's going on in their neighborhood, but just the people that are in the proximity are, and it's just really up to them whether or not they generally care or want to, you know, say anything more. Another part is it's hard to reach you all at Palindrome for, you know, particulars. And so having someone that can at Palindrome that can have that open conversation with community members when they have a question would be helpful, if that's something you guys have the capacity to do. And I also would like to, on a more private note, invite all the developers and housing providers on this call to a Fair Housing Council of Oregon webinar and training that's going to happen, that actually gives more information about how to kind of like be proactive with these situations. And also it addresses ADA, federal ADA specifics too as well. I am done.
Thank you, Jennifer. If you have information, I can share folks' emails, or they can choose to drop them in the chat, or I can forward it on. So feel free to email us that, Jennifer, and I can send it out to the folks that are on the docket for today. I have an additional question, if I didn't forget it already. If anyone else has one, since this is a pretty small group, feel free to jump in and I will think of it at some point. Oh, the retail facility. Do you know what that's going to be at this point? Or what it will be marketed towards?
We don't know yet. That really just depends on who comes our way when it's ready to rent. We are planning for the space to be ready for a restaurant use, but it doesn't have to be a restaurant use. It could be a small market or retail shop or art gallery. There's quite a lot of options. So we don't have a tenant yet. And if y'all know anybody who is interested, send them my way.
Awesome. Thank you, Weston. I'll open the floor because I don't see any hands. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Going once, going twice. Robert?
Yeah, I guess just a comment. It seems like this building is done for, but I believe Palindrome also bought the Masonic Lodge across the street, if I got the information correct. So hopefully, if there's another development proposal in the not too distant future, the word will get out. And I'll just say personally, I'm invested in saving the retail core of Lens because I don't think we need to replace every old building with an ugly new condo building like the rest of Portland does. So I just will make that comment that we'll be watching that closely. That's all.
Thanks,
Rob.
Robert.
We did not buy the Masonic Lodge. We don't have anything to do with that building. But I don't know if you were on the call earlier when the architects were making the presentation, or I actually don't even know how clear this was to everyone. We do own the building that is the Oddfellows Hall, across the street from the Masonic Hall, which is right next door to the one that's getting torn down, the historic Oddfellows Hall. We are keeping that building, and it is becoming a part of this project that we're talking about. So the historic building on the corner does stay and that's where the retail space is going to be, is in the ground floor of that building. And then the upstairs is lofts and apartments. And as for the other building that's getting torn down, I will say it was damaged by a fire some years ago on the inside, and it's not in great shape structurally. So it would have cost so much money to try to save that building. It just didn't make a lot of sense. But that building on the corner, the Oddfellows Lodge building, is really cool, and I'm happy to say that we're saving that one.
Joanne?
Yeah, another question that came up, our multitudinous questions, is people were wondering about 5716, which I guess is the pavilion. And again, during those community conversations, I think we understood, but that could have been a misunderstanding. It doesn't really matter. That pavilion was going to be created after 92H and the affordable housing. And now it seems as if the pavilion is going through. And there's been a little bit of a concern because it seems like the pavilion is actually more directed at improving Zeugel House space, which again is a palindrome property, Chad Rennicker's business, than it really is to provide a community benefit. And I would like to ask that more discussion come across about 5716 because we want to know how public will this public pavilion be, or is it something that's just going to be open to the public when there's the Lentz Farmers Market, but otherwise it's just for patrons of Zeugel House? So that's an issue. Do you know when the pavilion groundbreaking or whatever remodel is going to take place at 5716? Thank you.
We're still in for permits on that one. I just had a meeting on site this week with 2 people from the Portland Farmers Market, and they're excited about that project. It will be open to the public during the day, and the farmers market won't be the only user of that area. It's going to be a project that can be reserved for, community events and stuff like that as well.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment that when Asian Health and Services came in, we were also promised community space. And then when it ultimately came in, the charge for the community space was $160 an hour for nonprofits. That was a nonprofit rate. So, and you could only use it Mondays through Fridays during business hours, or maybe shortly after business hours, due to liability purposes. So we just want to make clear that since it is phase 2 taxpayer funded Prosper development, that the community is indeed involved, and it just doesn't become a private interest for moneyed community groups to use as event space, or a private restaurant brew pub business, again, just to generate business for the brew pub. Most of us cannot afford to eat at Z House. It's basically a tourist destination for people who want to slum it for a weekend. And there's been issues with that as well. And then the other issue that came up too, and maybe Kevin from Prosper can answer this, there's been a concern about a lot of community livability grant, Prosper funded, again, taxpayer funded projects that are associated with buildings that then get destroyed. So for example, the repeating patterns mural at 58112, 5812, 58114 is going to be demolished. That was a $30,000 art mural. The Story Yard on Foster and 90 something or other 88th is an eyesore right now. And what we don't understand is how come if it's a community space, why does Prosper have two signs that say no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted? That's not very welcoming to the community. And then of course there's the info kiosk that right now is a mess in the Woody Guthrie community area, I guess, that used to be near the town center. So we have a lot of concerns about community benefits that wound up not being community benefits, and we got screwed. I hate to say it, during phase one. We're not going to let ourselves be screwed during phase two. So again, just letting you know, we're watching. Thanks.
Awesome. So we're gonna give this about 8 more minutes if there are still questions and comments. Morgan, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of second some of the sentiments that people have had about, you know, like what Jennifer said about only the people within the vicinity were given notice, and the larger community didn't get it until we started seeing signs. It just kind of sounds like our entire downtown is going to be owned by Palindrome. And where is our personality coming from? Some of the things Joanne said are very concerning. And I get that developers are developers and they're going to do what developers are going to do, but I would hope that this meeting could serve as maybe a rallying cry to the people of Lentz to take back our stuff, because this isn't cool.
Thanks for those comments, Morgan. Anything else for this OTAC, or since we have Prosper and Palindrome on the line?
Yes, if I may, I would like to just add, I wanted to just listen and take in what our community members were sharing. So first I want to say thank you for sharing that. I am currently working with some of the team internally to get some answers. Some of the questions that the community members have actually reached out to me prior to that. I have seen some potential opportunities for activating space to really either get information out or possibly even have a more specific focus to what could be important for priorities for our community. So I myself, can introduce myself a little bit more as well. I joined the Prosper team in April of this year. And so I'm getting to learn and connect with some of our community members as far as new priorities that have come post-COVID, but of course ones that have been consistent. So I am here to listen. I am here to work and serve as a resource. I appreciate your time in working with me while I get those answers for you. And of course, I'm committed to just sitting down and having those conversations and just clarifying anything that needs to be clarified, because I do believe Lentz has something beautiful, and I would like to be a part of getting that out. So I'm listening. I appreciate you reaching out, and I can answer more of your questions and work with you as I also go in my role here at Prosper Portland. So if you would like to reach me, I can go ahead and put my information in the chat as well. And I can go from there, but if there's any other questions in the meantime, I'm writing everything down, and I would be more than happy to kind of go over any points that you would like. So,
Kevin, could you provide any advice for folks who are interested in getting more of this land use development project information firsthand versus kind of filtered through their neighborhood association? We have other organizations in Lentz specifically. For example, Joanne works with Lentz Strong quite a bit. Could you provide some information that we could share with folks on how they can make sure that they stay as engaged as they would like to be in whatever forum that they prefer. I guess, yeah, what's the best way to engage directly with you moving forward?
Sure, definitely. I can provide my direct contact information, so you can always send me anything directly. But of course, aside from that, I think that's probably the most direct way to get in contact with me. But I'm always looking for other opportunities as I work, and if I can have time and have some time to sit down with each one of you at some point, maybe we can come up with some great ideas to kind of enhance that communication and get that information out aside from our website or social media. But we do have, right, but myself coming from the nonprofit background too, I understand that, maybe there's opportunities where we can make it fit. So I would be happy to kind of discuss that on my end and see how I can be a resource.
Awesome, thank you, Kevin. I'll do one more open for any final questions, comments. Jennifer has put the information on the Fair Housing Council of Oregon Developer and Construction Training in the chat. So we'll make sure those are in the notes and get sent out to folks as well. So thank you, Nate, Ron, Weston, Kevin, for joining us tonight. We did have two other developments on the agenda today. The first was 3321 Southeast 87th with Ed Brune from Edge Development. And actually, Joanne, thank you for pointing out that that is half a block north of the Lentz boundary. I did let them know that they should reach out to the Powellhurst Gilbert Neighborhood Association and provided that contact info to them. The second one is here in Lentz. Let me drop the link address in the chat. This was 5439 Southeast 89th Avenue. So basically Ellis and 89th. The contact there was Ryan Coleman with McGurl Designs. He stated that this is a type 1 development, so the firm does not need to be present. But if folks do have any public comment on the information that they provided that is in the agenda, they're proposing a 3-story above grade 24-unit apartment building with parking provided, a trash room and bicycle parking. I know I myself am also curious how they are going to address climate change issues moving forward, so I'm going to send them a note there. But if other folks are interested, I will put that contact info up for that individual as well. Do one more scan for any questions or comments, and then we will move on from land use to committee updates. So thank you again, folks. If you don't want to stick around for committee updates, I won't be offended.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. All right. So we have a very small crew tonight. That is okay. We will go ahead and move forward, and anything that we need to revisit, we can look at doing that in some other venues. One of the, I guess this is a land use sort of committee updates, but one of the things to be aware of, especially if you are on the south side of Lentz, is the E-zone project. The E-zone project is basically the city is looking to revisit the way, or I guess revisit environmental zones on the environmental overlay zone map. For us, this mostly looks like it is really along Johnson Creek to the south, as long as the, as long as the southeast corner of Lentz. So there is a neighbor from one of the neighborhoods north of us who is encouraging folks who are available and feel passionate to testify at the, I believe it's August 15th. That's the last public comment meeting. So you can find that information in the BPS E-Zones link that I shared there. We'll do the quick ones first. And Morgan, if you want to jump in, feel free. The committee that has yet to be named, because we didn't really like livability or beautification, had 2 community cleanup events this month, July 5th, with part of the Detrash Portland Solve effort at Lentz Park after the holiday, as well as this past Saturday, July 24th, the Lentz Monument West. This last Saturday, we cleaned up an estimated 175 pounds of trash, with big thank yous to our local business partners who helped us actually with the disposal. So that was Lentz Body Shop, Worth Excellent, Portland Motor Works, and then Bella's for providing restroom access to the volunteers. Let's see, the last quick one before we jump into finance is from a public safety perspective, and I think we'll probably put a survey for this. The board talked about gauging community interest in a special meeting specifically to discuss community responses to natural disaster events, such as this past heat wave. So I guess I'll open the floor to any comments if folks would be interested in that, if you have any ideas in that regard, and then we'll also solicit thoughts on social media as well. Morgan?
Yeah, I should have just jumped in, sorry. Yeah, so you know, with the recent cleanups and stuff, I wish I had actually mentioned this when we were talking to Palindrome, but I got wind of people who were living in apartment buildings during the last heat wave, you know, being forced to take down their reflective cardboard over their windows, which can actually help reduce heat by like 80% or something. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. And certain property managers were forcing people to take them down because they didn't like how they looked. And that just got me thinking about, you know, a lot of the people who we didn't reach out to older folks living in their apartments, I don't think, well enough. And some kind of maybe survey or a community team to kind of do that proactively to keep track of who might need help might be interesting.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. I'm going to summarize really quick in the chat just because writing things down helps me process them. I think it sounded like one of the comments was sort of renters advocacy, specifically related to, you know, basically like HOA apartment rules for when people are trying to shelter from heat.
Yeah, if you're not going to provide air conditioning to folks, and I get it, like some of them are saying they're going to be rec rooms or what have you, but in times of COVID, that could be difficult, complicating. So people are being penalized for trying to protect themselves. And I think it's disgusting, frankly, and I really would like to see some advocacy for those people.
Awesome, that's a great suggestion. And then the second comment sounded like better community advocacy and outreach organized for vulnerable.
Yeah, particularly for older folks who, you know, might not get out much. I think a lot of people just didn't even know it was coming. So I don't know about you guys, but the thought of somebody dying alone in their apartment because it got too hot is really depressing. I'd like to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Jennifer?
It would be so helpful if more of these people who are facing situations that are unfair to them would, you know, speak up and tell, you know, or us reaching out to those people and getting the information and the complaints or even the good things that are going on within their complexes, so we can gather that information and use it for the next developments to, you know, create more policies. And so I think just the situation is just getting all of the community voices and having more outreach made in general, and someone stepping up to that. I typically advocate for, you know, people who live in these situations. And I think that, you know, if we could get some more outreach in the Lentz neighborhood, and these different groups, civic groups, can, you know, bond together with Lentz Neighborhood Association, and everyone just really come together and say, hey, this is what's going on. Now let's have someone speak to the powers that be to make change. Then change can happen. You can't just do it on your, it's hard to do it by yourself. And then also reaching out to the community organizations, the larger ones that kind of help with utilities and et cetera, and just things that are just happening in our community, just everyone coming together. It really has to happen. And Jean, thanks for putting that in the chat. But that's what it's going to take. People just coming together aside of their differences and coming up with a plan on how to make change.
I 100% agree with Jennifer. I just think this last summer has surmised, and the wildfires before that, nothing's going to happen if we don't come together and you know, really do it ourselves, and then demand that those, you know, hires up give us the resources. But we're going to have to do something, or a lot more people are going to die. That is a fact.
To open the floor, do folks know of other organizations that are kind of mobilizing in this way, where we can perhaps motion or vote or look at what it would take to join forces? Joanne?
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of an issue because there's not a great liking for the Lentz Neighborhood Association. And some of it has to do is there's a certain snootiness that people think that just because people aren't organizing with them, it means they're not organizing. And we saw that in a lot of the publicity that was being bandied about by Lentz Neighborhood Association about the Portland street response, where one person was acting as if they were steering the community to empathy. And it really turned off a lot of people. The board position statement that came out just as a board position statement without waiting for the community to give input. And I can guarantee you that probably most of the community would have supported that board position statement in support of Portland street response. Most of my neighbors support Portland street response, whether they're right or left wing. So there's a certain amount of snootiness, and the other community reputation that LNA has, and another community groups closely associated with LNA lately, is that they will take credit for what other people do, and they will use their superior clout with the city to pretend as if it's their project. And that becomes really off-putting to people of color, marginalized groups, etc. So there's, you know, I'm not even going to suggest who to work with. I would say just put it out on Facebook or on the website, and good luck, because right now there's a lot of damage control that needs to be done in the community, a lot of restorative justice that needs to be done, a lot of people who have been very hurt, and there's been no attempt at finding out who was wronged, who did the wronging, how can it be made better, how can it be prevented from happening again. It keeps happening again and again and again, no matter what board it is. There's been problems going on in this neighborhood at least 4 years and probably decades in the making. But there's a certain snootiness that comes up oftentimes with very educated people and professional people. And I would say most of the board right now is educated and professional. There's been a history of that, having the privilege of time, having the privilege of an education. And I'm part of that, having the privilege of education, having the privilege of time and everything else, of trying to put themselves in an overlord position that look at us, here are we do so much. We have such a mental load. Oh, look at us, self-congratulate us, etc. And it's really off-putting. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, thank you for sharing, Joanne. I think it's, yeah, I know from our correspondences that you care a lot, and that's really powerful, and I appreciate all the input today. Morgan?
I would just like to, let people know that there's a lot of history in the neighborhood association, a history that I wasn't necessarily aware of when I joined the board. And, I had nothing to do with, and neither did other people. And I know that the people that I work with don't do that. They don't stand above people. They don't ask for credit. That's not what we do this for. So, and I'm rather tired of standing here and having to defend the things that we do. I'm tired of coddling the egos of people who don't, who are just kind of there to yell at us and not offer us much, help or solutions. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm worried about people dying. I want to help them and I want it to be done. And I think we need to set aside our differences and stop pointing fingers and acting like this is, this is the end all be all, because it's not. There are way bigger fish to fry and we need to get at it or it's going to get worse and we're all going to get swallowed. And that's all I'm going to say about that, for real.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Okay, so definitely, sorry, to summarize, because it's already 8:13, I think sort of the big themes that have come out is specifically helping people become more resilient and even just advocating for people to be allowed to survive today, whether that's collecting stories so that, bigger groups of people can try to move to make change, or really just meeting individuals. Definitely kind of, I think, everyone's conversation around this has to be a team effort, and this is about people's lives and livelihoods is really important to keep focused. So I guess this could be a motion, but I would like to, motion for the LNA to continue outreach on this topic and soliciting feedback and ideas. And I think we should look at setting up a special meeting specifically in this regard. So I think we can leave that there. Sorry, before we are going to get to finances, I promise. This discussion did also remind me that we have board elections coming up in September. So we did put together a interest form generally that ideally we can review responses and get folks lined up to present out at the August general meetings with their platforms. So feel free to check that out. Feel free to fill it out. Feel free to share it. We'll also be posting that on various media sites. And then finally, because I can't share, I'm going to go ahead and share the link. So you should be able to view this, I believe, without logging into a Google account. Joanne, this is a slightly updated version of what you probably saw at the board meeting a few weeks ago, but essentially summarizing our bank account balance at the end of June was $1,296.05. The expenses in the month of June were $29.93, paying for the PGE monuments. There was no activity on the PayPal. The update from the board meeting, we still have not heard back on the check delivery for the CAS grant with the turbulence in the mail situation. Although we did hear from Lee Shao that when she got the check, she was going to reach out to our treasurer. So that would be income of $415.95 for the Community Activities Fund grant from EPCO. We did finally get the itemized receipt for the May 15th cleanup. Thank you for Forces, so Jennifer, for all the support in that event. Essentially, the LNA was actually only billed $83.90. We had originally voted to approve a budget of up to $500. That was for the disposal charge. The rest of the bill was credited back to Four Forces by Arrow, and Four Forces also donated the cost for the Dropbox delivery, so the hauling. So thank you for being a great partner to Four Forces, and that is an update. So that's actually a lot less money leaving the bank this month than what we expected. And then finally, on July 8th, we paid the Oregon Secretary of State Registration, which was $50. Opens remaining, so following up with EPCO for the CAF grant check so that we can go ahead and deposit that. The open on the Let's Fair 2020 grant, whether we request the funding back or request an updated basically proposal to repurpose for 2021, 2022. And then finally, the PGE for the monument is still an open. That's currently costing us $30 per month, essentially. I believe Nicole was going to reach out to PGE, and we had the due date on that to report back in the August 2021 board meeting. So hopefully we will make progress with that. We did confirm that PBOT has the encroachment, their encroachment department has the permit. And then in the last board meeting, we also discussed potentially, you know, is there a way, again, to do a solar powered project? Do we want to take this to City Hall? The LNA have already reached out to local businesses. I think Glen's Grown is just getting restarted. So that is probably another avenue that we need to revisit as well. Joanne.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Community still would like some robust discussion about that finance report. And we realize that, yeah, most of the board are new people. We realize that. We realize that you're getting a lot of flack for past boards. But the fact of the matter remains that $8,000 was a lot of money to go unaccounted for. And in the light of restorative justice and just making sure that sound financial practices go forward in the future, we need to resolve some of the problems. The motion for East Portland Collective was specifically for establishing a nonprofit, to support the establishment of a nonprofit. And according to the finance report, there's about $1,400 left in that account. So in order to be fair, if we're asking Robert Schultz and Lensfair to account for that $2,000 that's currently missing, that first Robert had said was deposited with EPN into their Lensfair activity account, and now apparently it's missing. We should also be asking East Portland Collective to refund $1,400 because, like I said, the motion was specifically to establish a nonprofit. The nonprofit was established. There was $1,400 left. The other thing that's going on also is that there were a lot of questions, again, before your time, but it needs to be resolved. Why did Lent's garage sale cost $1,925 when the approval was only for $1,500? Where did that $425 go? Where did the Lentz History Project remaining $405 go if the booth only cost $60 at the Lentz Fair and apparently no website was established? Where did these monies go? What was the transportation cost that was incurred by whomever if nobody was picking up the mail at EPCO? Usually that's where transportation costs would be coming up. Why is childcare with odd cents? We had approved $50 to $75 per meeting. Why is it like $63.50 and then $160? Why weren't we paying the childcare person in the moment as soon as services were rendered? The other thing too is we don't understand materials costs. EPCO at that time was open. That's the only time really when materials would have been required was for in-person meetings. You could get up to 199 copies photocopied for free at EPCO. So where did all of this money going towards, we haven't even met who's on the finance committee. So all these things, and it's becoming a big problem because elections are coming up. I'm trying to do outreach to people, but I have to be honest and say, hey, there's still this cloud hanging over our heads as to what happened to at least $4,000. And they don't want to get involved because they don't want to have to deal with what you all are complaining about now, having to deal with past history. This is not just past history. This is fiscal mismanagement, and it's potentially criminal charges. And we can't proceed until we find out what exactly happened. There's also a problem with conflict of interest or loyalty. We've counted just through a quick internet search that 3 of the 5 board members have connections to one of the community groups that got a lot of money from the neighborhood association with no secondary approval from general membership. That's a big deal. You can't go around approving $2,000 at a time out of an $8,000 bank account to board members' assumed business names. So this needs to be addressed before elections, and you all keep pushing it back and back and back and back. And it's not your fault. Again, you didn't inherit it, but we need to get somebody in who can explain what exactly happened during that period of time. And yeah, we've been asking since June 2019. As soon as the treasurer's reports were not being issued, we sent emails to Lentz Neighborhood. Again, you weren't there, but we were constantly, every other month, please issue an itemized treasurer's report. And then a year later, we find out $8,000 are missing. So there's a lot of financial irregularities that really need to be taken care of, that I guess the board really should take care of it, or at least try to get the people who know the answers to these questions to answer, particularly Brian Moore, who was the treasurer at that time, apparently, and the LNA chairperson. Those are the 2 people who would be most involved with finances. And that's all I have to say, which is quite a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Joanne. Really quick, so we do have receipts for a lot of things. I actually do know the answer to the question on the weird cents and change thing, which is apparently Brian liked to write lump sum checks, so it would be multiple receipts on one check. As a very annoyingly, that's not the right word. As someone who appreciates individual line items, especially for clarity in this kind of thing, I can understand how that creates heartache. But yeah, thank you for expressing your concerns there. Morgan, your hand is up.
Yeah, I can speak to Lentz history. The cost wasn't just for the booth, it was for all of the printouts, and some of those images needed to be purchased. And so that's where that grant was spent. The website is still under development due to a lot of research. Jason is still on it. So that is still, it's something that is in development, and it is something that is, you will start to see results very soon. Jason has been working very hard, but again, it's a side project and a labor of love. Like I said, after the booth was done at Lentz Fair, he spent his own money on the web hosting himself. So there was no uncouth behavior there. And I want to be very careful about the way people insinuate things. Saying that something is criminal, that doesn't help you get results. You're basically accusing people of committing crimes. And a lot of people worked very hard on that finance report to get the information that we needed. We inherited a big mess, and we have been trying to fix it and work it out. And I think that assuming good intentions is incredibly important in this. You're just going to catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Awesome. Thanks, Morgan. Joanne, your hand's back up,
Yeah.
and we're just going to do a quick time check. It's 8:25.
Okay, just one thing is that, I'm getting a lot of flack because people call me because they're not finding Lentz Neighborhood very responsive. And the flack that I've been getting is, and I was told this by the DOJ as well too, that if push comes to shove, file a police report. For obvious reasons, we would prefer not to file a police report. Unfortunately, the way it works, according to the Department of Justice, this is not me coming up with banding of criminal charges or whatever else, is that what goes on with that is the whole board is responsible, because the whole board is responsible for fiduciary responsibility. So again, out of ethics, out of integrity, out of being somewhat of an enabler, as I've been accused by community members and everything else, we are being told, I am being pressured that, oh, we need to file a police report because we have all these questions that aren't getting answered. So that's all we're saying. That's all we're saying. We're saying that, hey, you all weren't here. I'm glad you're finally clarifying some of the problems, but that's what we're saying. It's not OCD, it's basic budget. So, you know, there's been accusations by a former board member that there was mismanagement, and he was actually there during the stuff. We're looking at stuff and we're saying, gee, even though he may not be the most credible narrators normally, we're looking at, we're saying, gee, we're finding the same thing. So we're not accusing people. People need to be less defensive as well, too. Thank you.
There was a lot of hard work that was put into trying to figure out where all that money went. And it didn't have to be done. Like, people could have been lazy and said, nope, I'm not doing it again.
Thank you, Jennifer.
But others did decide to break it up, make reports, dig into, you know, what was going on, what happened. And all I gotta say is, now it's going forward, it's fixed. What we need to work on is how to get more funds into the bank so we can support more of the community activities and more of, you know, supporting other civic groups, because that's what neighborhood associations do, is they give money to civic groups, businesses, or whatever that need it to make improvements or to do more activities within the community.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jennifer.
thanks, Jennifer.
I also want to add, we need to adjourn here. We all want to go, but I want to add, just for the record, we have not gotten any people asking us about this beside Joanne. So I don't know who we are, but that's not, Jean and I are the ones that check the email. We don't get anybody else. So if that's not where we're getting the inquiries from, I don't know where we are. I'm sorry. There's only so much we can do as volunteers, and we have done a lot. And I'm not looking for, you know, praise. I thought it was something that needed to be done, but we all put in a lot of time and a lot of work into that. And, you know, we weren't under any illusion that it was going to be, you know, well received or whatever, but we need to move forward. There is no crime has been committed here. And I just want to say that for the record. I'm kind of done with it.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. So it is 8:29, so we can go ahead and formally adjourn. Actually, the attendance was not as high as I wanted, especially with the Lentz Town Center development items. Thank you, Kevin, for sticking with us this long. But I do think it was a really good discussion, and I think there's some really big picture items that there is alignment despite conflict on. So excited to move forward with those. So with that, it is officially 8:30. So we're going to go ahead and stop the recording and adjourn the Lentz Neighborhood Association July, I almost said August, general meeting. Thank you all.